Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat at welcome sa ikatlong installment ng Philippine Indigenous Languages Lecture Series of Bills para sa taong 2023. Ang sering ito ng public lectures ay inorganisa bilang bahagi ng selebrasyon ng sentenaryo ng UP Department of Linguistics at bilang pakikiisa sa International Decade of Indigenous Languages na itinakda ng United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization o UNESCO. Ako nga po pala si Noah Cruz, ang magsisilbing moderator para sa lecture ngayong hapon. Ang event pong ito ay naka-livestream sa official na Facebook page at YouTube channel ng UP Department of Linguistics. Para po sa ating mga manonood, maaari niyo pong ilagay ang inyong mga katanungan at feedback sa comment section at susubukan po naming ma-address ang mga ito pagkatapos ng talk. Tiyakin po sana natin ng ating mga tanong at komento ay isinulat ng may kaayusan at may paggalang. Maaari nyo rin pong gamitin ang hashtag na #UPLingPills para sa pagpo-post sa social media ng mga karagdagang ideya o insights na may kaugnayan sa lecture. Sa punto pong ito ay ikinagagala kong ipakilala ang mga tagapagsalita para sa lecture ngayong araw. Hayaan niyo pong basahin ko ang maikling bio note ng ating speakers. Ang una po nating tagapanayam ay si Associate Professor Joseph M. Añavesa. He was named the 2013 Most Outstanding Southern Leyteño in the field of education by the Provincial Government of Southern Leyte. He is an Associate Professor at Southern Leyte State University Tomas Opus Campus and the Principal of SLSU Laboratory High School. He earned his BS Ed English program from Southern Leyte State University and his MA Ed in Language Education from UP Diliman. He has completed the Instructional and Curricular Excellence in School Leadership and Management course from Simeo Enotech. He also revised John U. Wolff's Dictionary of Cebuano-Visayan this year. He is now finishing his Bisaja Tagalog English Multimedia Dictionary. His research interests include MTBMLE, language teaching, and language documentation. He is currently a PhD candidate in linguistics at UP Diliman. Kasama po ni Sir Joseph si Assistant Professor Divine Angeli P. Endriga. She is a faculty member at the Department of Linguistics, University of the Philippines, Diliman. She has finished her BA and MA linguistics degrees in the same institution and is currently taking her PhD in linguistics. She is also the managing editor of The Archive, the official journal of the department. Her research interests and publications are in the fields of typology, structure of Philippine languages, verbal morphosyntax, language documentation, dialectology, Philippine lexicography, Filipino as a second or foreign language, and translation. Sir Joseph, Ma'am Divine, magandang araw po at salamat sa pagsama sa amin sa hapong ito.
Hello. Hello, maadlong adlaw sa tanan. Good day, everyone. Today, we are presenting an introductory study to the Cebuano varieties spoken in Southern Leyte, where Joseph and I are both from. So just an overview, we'll provide the geographic profile of the province, the dialect profile, specifically its phonology, yung segments, suprasegmentals, phonotactics in the forms of clusters, diphthongs, and syllable patterns, as well as some internal dialect variation and possible unique usage. So the word there is possible, as there's no comprehensive dialectology yet. So these are what we have observed to be what we commonly use in our variety, but not in other variants we have encountered, or in the case that they are not unique, then they are more prevalent in use in Southern Leyte than in the other places where Cebuano is spoken. So if what we mentioned here are also in your variant of Cebuano, you may indicate them in the comments, or if you think of other possible unique usage to Southern Leyte, you may comment them as well. So do you have an idea where Southern Leyte is? Okay. Okay. So Southern Leyte, I'm sure you know where Leyte is because that's where Tacloban is. But not everyone is familiar with Southern Leyte. So Southern Leyte is in Region VIII or Eastern Visayas, together with Samar and Biliran. The capital is Maasin. Previously known as the Third District of Leyte, it became a separate province in 1959 by virtue of RA 2227, or an act creating the province of Southern Leyte as signed by President Carlos P. Garcia. It has an estimated population of almost half a million, 420,000, and it is bordered by Leyte in the north, Surigao Strait in the east, Canigao Channel in the west, and Bohol Sea in the south. So you can see that in the map in the next slide. So here's the map showing Southern Leyte with its divisions and a larger detail of the province on the right. So as you can see, all of the municipalities and city have access to the sea. While it is underrated in terms of tourism, Southern Leyte is abundant in diving spots and marine sanctuaries, as well as forests, cave networks, and falls, which makes it a good place for nature tripping. So may kasama po itong pagpo-promote. Okay, so Southern Leyte is divided into 18 municipalities and one city. So that city is also the capital, which is Maasin. And some of the places might be familiar to you, like Limasawa, for example, where the first Catholic Mass was held. Now, going into the language. As for the language spoken in the province, it has been grouped by Zorc in the Cebuan subgroup of Central Philippine languages. So it is also called Bisaya or Bisaja, Binisaya or Binisaja. So while in common everyday discussion, these terms are used interchangeably, but they do have their distinction. So technically, if we look at it in academic terms, they do have their distinctions. So what's the difference between Binisaya and Bisaya? Okay, so Binisaya refers to the language by the people in the Visayas and those that are owned or associated with the Visayan people. So among the Binisaya languages are Hiligaynon or Ilonggo, Waray, Aklanon, Kinaraya, Cebuano, Cuyunon, and etc. As for Bisaya or Bisaya, it refers to the person native to the Visayas or those whose origins are from Visayas. And it refers also to a Binisaya speaking person. So summing up the distinctions, Cebuano is a kind of Binisaya spoken by a Bisaya or a Bisaya. The Bisaya is a speaker of any kind of Binisaya, and Binisaya are languages in the Visayas which has extended to other areas like in Mindanao. Therefore, Bisaya is a generic term in the sense that not all Bisaya are Cebuano, Ilonggo, and Waray, but all Cebuanos, Ilonggos, and Warays are Bisaya. So as used by a Cebuano, Bisaya is interchangeable with a Cebuano. To someone in Tacloban or Samar, Bisaya is interchangeable with Waray, but Cebuano, Ilonggo, and Waray are not interchangeable. However, in common or everyday parlance, especially in the media, whenever a person is called Bisaya, it is a common notion or that it automatically refers to Cebuano people. This impression probably came about in 1948 when Cebuano speakers comprised one-fourth of the Philippine population, or maybe even earlier given the Cebuano population in 1929. Continuous migration to Metro Manila is also a factor. So Metro Manila is a mass media center, and there are many shows where they stereotype people as low class or as servants, often the subject of comedy and mockery for their pronunciation. They call them Bisaya, but the language itself is Cebuano. So even very recently, as I was searching for a show to watch on View, if you're familiar with the app, yung VIU, I came across a version of the Korean drama True Beauty labeled as Bisaya dubbed. So upon checking, it is in Cebuano. So they do have three Korean dramas there that have Bisaya dubbing or Cebuano dubbing. Yung My Girlfriend is a Gumiho and Descendants of the Sun. Okay. So all in all, while there are many Binisaya languages and Bisaya people, there is a default that the terms Binisaya or Bisaya refer to Cebuano. Now, the variety in Southern Leyte is we call Bisaja. So based on the field conducted, speakers of the Southern Leyte variety refer to the dialect as any of the following. So Cebuano-Southern Leyte, Bisaya or Bisaja, as well as Binisaya or Binisaja. Binolanon or Boholano, so that will be explained later why it is associated with such, as well as Kinabalian or Kinabalianon, and also Kana. So Kana is the word for that, yung demonstrative. As Zorc stated, while Bisayan varieties are commonly identified as Binisaya, local names are used or often derived from the idiosyncrasy of the grammar, vocabulary, or locale. So yung Kana. Okay? However, Kana is not an endonym or a self-designation. Bisajas are called by others as Kana for the constant use of this demonstrative when pointing to things or preferences like this is kana, kana, kana. For when pointing to things or preferences, and there are actually people who do not like this to be used to refer to the language. So for this presentation, we chose the term Bisaja. Now we'll proceed to the phonological profile beginning with the consonants. Okay. So there are 16 phonemic consonants in this variety, 7 stops. There are 3 nasals, 2 fricatives, 2 liquids, and 2 glides. These consonants can occur in all word positions in initial, medial, and final. But in the case of H, according to Zorc, it is possible to have a final H as a convention, but it is in free variation with a final 0. For this presentation, we opt to use the final 0 instead of positing a final H. The phonemes L, R, W, Y, and S occur in syllable medial position as a member of a consonant cluster. And there are also rare instances of combinations of fricatives and stops, like ST, and fricative and nasal, like SM, among the clusters, as well as the occurrence of clusters in the coda position, wherein you have the glide W together with DG and the nasals in coda position. Most of the consonants are stable and does not undergo sound changes, except in the case of L, or the alveolar lateral approximant, and Y, a palatal approximant. So the fun letters are L and Y. First change involves the deletion of L. So an intervocalic L is deleted between the same vowel. Afterwards, one of the two vowels is also deleted. In turn, compensatory lengthening occurs to fill the space for deleted segments. For example, dalan becomes dan, balay is bay, wala, wa, dili, di, bulo, bu, and sulod is sud. Another change for intervocalic L is that it becomes W between the vowels A and U. Then the second vowel, which is the U, is deleted. So you have examples from balud, balud, then you have bawud, so the change of L to W, and then the U is deleted, you have bawud. So you can see here the formation of a cluster. Then lalum to lawum to laum, and salug, sawug to saug. So L to W is also used in the other half of Bohol facing Southern Leyte. So the other half facing Cebu retains L, and half of Cebu also does this, including Cebu City, but it is L in Mindanao. In the municipality of Hinunangan, they tend to retain the U sound with its free variation O after the change of L to W. So from Talung to Tawung. So usually it's Taong in the rest of the province, but in Hinunangan they say Tawong. Okay, same goes for the Wungan, which becomes Daungan or Dungan. They say the Wongan. Okay, so in the map you can see where Hinunangan is. It's right there with the arrow. Okay. Another change for intervocalic L. So it becomes W again, but this time between U and A. So it is the vowels are in the reverse order of the previous change. In this case, the second vowel A is not deleted, but there is optional deletion of the first vowel, which will result in a consonant cluster in the onset position. So you have bulad for dried fish, becoming buwad, but it can also be buwad. Same goes for hulat, which can be huwat or huwat. Bulan can be buwan or buwan. But in the other two examples, there's no deletion yet. So that's why we say it's still optional. Like bulak becoming buwak and tigulang becoming tiguwang. So they're not yet buwak and tiguang. We haven't heard that yet. There are also cases where word final L becomes W, like in the case of tambal to tambaw and bunal to bunaw. In the municipalities of Hinunangan and Macrohon, some words that retained L in word final position in the rest of the province still became W. So you have Bagul, which is Bagul in the rest of Southern Leyte. In Hinunangan and Macrohon, they became Bago. Duol is Duo, Bahal is Bahaw, and Kural is Kurao. So you can see in the map where they the positions of these municipalities. So they are across each other, no, on different. One is in the east and one is in the west. Okay, so in the municipality of San Juan, formerly known as Cabalian, intervocalic L becomes Y between the same vowel. It is not deleted, nor does it change to W, but it becomes the voice palatal approximant Y. And this change is influenced by Surigao. So there is a proposed Kinabalian or Kinabalianon language or dialect. For example, Balay, which is Bay in most of Southern Leyte, it's Bayay in San Juan or Cabalian. Bulo, Bu, and Buyo, Halas, Has, and Hayas. Sulod is Suyod, and Ulo, U, and Uyo. This change is influenced by Surigao, and aside from influence from Surigao, this lect has strong Cebuano influence as well, but also has a Waray substrate, similar to the case of Utudnon or Baybayanon, as well as Porohanon in Camotes. So there is that proposal for a separate language or maybe a separate dialect. But this is also not in the whole of San Juan. This change is specific to the barangays marked in yellow in the map. So these are San Jose, Basak, Garrido, Suwa, Timba, Agay-ay, Bobon A, and Bobon B. So they're right there in the map. Okay. And okay. The reason for this influence may be due to trading. So even today, some people still go to buy commodities or buy commodities or trade with Surigao. So they sell copra, abaca, or nipa, etc. And binabangka lang ito. So because it is right near Surigao Strait. So another possible reason is migration. Some families from Surigao settle there and continue trade or enterprises in Surigao. So why migration in particular? It's because San Juan is not a port, although it used to have one. The municipality of Loan across it, the one marked with the blue arrow, it's the one with the pier. So that's where you cross between Mindanao and Visayas, but it is unaffected by this change. And intermarriage can also be a factor. Okay, another change for this variety, aside from L, the palatal approximant Y also undergoes a change to the alveopalatal affricate J. So this happens in a syllable initial position. So you have Baguio to Bagju. That's why when I greeted you earlier, I said Maadjo, yung Maadjong Adlaw. Then Baybayon is Baybajun. Luya is Luja. Tian, Tijan. Payag is Pajag. And Gayud is Gajud or shortened to Jude. This is a characteristic sound of the Cebuano spoken in Southern Leyte, and it is in common with the dialect spoken in Bohol called Binolanon or Boholano. That's why there are also some people who use the term Binolanon for Southern Leyte Cebuano. In Bohol, however, not all of Bohol uses this change. So the towns facing Cebu City, like Tubigon, Clarin, and Sagbayan, do not use J, whereas those in the northeast, like Ubay and Talibon, use this. So Tagbilaran does not use J. The towns using J are the ones facing the province of Southern Leyte, where the use of this sound is more pronounced throughout the province, except in barangays Minuiho, Pungoy, and Osao in the municipality of San Juan or Cabalian. Okay. So some Southern Leyteños call their Cebuano dialect as Binulanon or Boholano because of this similarity. So I'll also add here that there were cases wherein Boholano is listed as a separate language to Cebuano, but in a paper I wrote in 2009, I argued that Boholano is a dialect of Cebuano. With the addition of an affix, a final Y can also change to affricate J because it has already moved to the syllable initial, like baboy, for example, we add the A as an affix to refer to a specific pig. So we say baboja, okay? As well as bantay, added with an affix E for imperative. So we have bantaji, okay? There are also exceptions to this. So even if Y is already in syllable initial position, like basiyo, we also have sayal, balantiyong, and I'm sure you know this last example, which we all aspire to be, hayahay. Okay, so you don't say hajahay, it's hayahay. As for the vowels, okay, so there are three vowels, a high front unrounded lax E, high back rounded lax U, and an open front unrounded lax A. So in the Pratt chart, you can see on your screen, you can see the overlap of O and U. So actually the highlighted letter there should be U. And there's also an overlap of E and E as well. They occur in medial and final positions and not in initial position because all of those are preceded by a glottal stop. There are only three phonemic vowels. The inclusion of e and o usually occurs with borrowed words and with certain phonological changes. The vowel sounds may vary from one speaker to another, from one place to another, but the tolerance to the variation is such that it does not cause meaning differences whatever vowel variant is used. There is a tendency for to be pronounced longer when they appear in open stressed syllable and shorter in unstressed open syllable and closed syllables or CVC. So here is E. It is in free variation with the high front unrounded tense E, which is much higher, and the mid front unrounded lax E. There is a tendency to be pronounced the high E when it appears at the beginning of a syllable orthographically. So not phonologically. For example, this ija, uh, can be pronounced as ija because the I there appears as the first segment orthographically. So it is E or A in stressed open syllables like gabi, lubi, and kasili, and it can become E in syllable final position like tinai to tinae, puti to puti. Okay. For U, it can be a higher U and mid backgrounded lax O. Like there is a general rule here that it can be O in any position, but usually when it is the final segment of a word or when it is in the ultima. It is often U or U in open and stressed syllable, which is not in the ultima. So Father Rodolfo Cabonce in his Cebuano dictionary, this is not the dictionary is not about the variety in Southern Leyte, but he has set rules there that can also apply in the use of these variations in Cebuano-Southern Leyte. So we have it is U in the first and middle syllables, like in udtu, in closed syllables before the bilabials, like in daku, before the dentals C and D and the alveolar S, like kamut, in duplicate syllables or words which have the same segments like kubkub, and in syllables with juxtaposed vowels, we have adjacent vowels like duol. It is O in monosyllabic words like ko or mo before velars and nasals, so dabong, and before unstressed T, D, and S like tuhod, and in duplicate syllables before nang and en, like in the name Tonton. However, they say that Bisaja or our variety is really gahi, matigas. So can be ku or mu as well. This is the bung and this is tuhod, and that is fine. So the tolerance for variation is really high. A is stable, so it's open front and rounded laps, like in parat, panit, usa, and ganiha. But before W, it can sometimes be pronounced like an O or like a schwa, like walo becoming wolo and wala becoming wala. Okay, but it can also be pronounced openly as a. This may be an effect of the phoneme W, which is labial velar inarticulation with the lips rounded, and therefore the a that follows W assimilates with the rounding of the lips as well as the near retroflexion of the following L sound, resulting in the use of a rounded vowel. However, without the L, it is pronounced as a. So if you say, for example, wala, then it can be wala. But if it underwent the change already of the deletion of the L in intervocalic position, so this is wa, and it cannot be walk. Okay. And the last vowel in consideration is the schwa. So there is a non-phonemic schwa. Proto-Bisaya has four vowels, including the schwa. This has coalesced with u, except in two barangays in Macrohon. So those are Amparo and Laray. So in Macrohon, the word for tanum becomes tanum, kaun is kaun, hagu is hagu, and bukbuk is bukbuk. So in the map, you can see Macrohon here. Okay. And in the next one, there are three arrows. So the three places pointed in the map are those with variations. So this is interesting, though. What could have caused the variation is in this are in these places only. So although not entirely verified yet, the possible reasons can be due to language contact because of trading, migration, as well as intermarriage. And we have yet to fully investigate this. So that's it for the segments of Bisaja. We'll proceed to the next ones with Sir Joseph.
Majong palis ninjong tanan. Okay, we have two terms to refer to afternoon here in Southern Leyte. Palis, that means between noon and 3 p.m. And after that, we would say maadong hapon ninjong tanan. That's from 3 or from 3 to 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So maadong palis is good afternoon. Then ninjong tanan is to all of you. So my task is to talk about the phonological profile of Bisaja. And this will be, or I'll focus on the suprasegmentals. Okay. Okay, so have here stress. Okay, this is the prominence of a syllabic segment. And this is usually found either in ultima or in penultima. Okay, and then long words, usually with 4 syllables or more, have primary and the secondary stress. And it is phonemic because when there's a change in stress, there's also a change in meaning. So, for example, here, bato, stone, lajo, far, liso, seed, then kasing-kasing, heart, and then alibangbang, butterfly. So I'll give you examples now with Bisaja terms that have different meanings because of the change in stress. So let's have baga means lungs, and then baga, thick, and then ego means fit or enough, and then ego is to hit. And then the next one is quite interesting because we would say baji to refer to girl or woman or female, but we would say baji to other woman or to a female animal. And then for lucky, or lucky rather, lucky means boy or man or male, but lucky is other man or male animal. Okay, and then inom is to drink, for example, water or medicine, and inom is to drink liquor. usually with friends. Okay. Then we'll have consonant clusters. We have here sequences of consonants in the same syllable in our dialect Bisaja. So often in the onset of a syllable, that is before the nucleus or usually a vowel. It is with a few in coda position, mainly due to the deletion of vowel U after L, becoming W, and then A, of course, or A. Then we have here stop plus glides W and Y, then stop and laterals L and R, nasal plus glides W and Y, fricative plus glide W, fricative plus stop, then fricative plus nasal, then cluster, becoming affricate and fricative. So sequences of consonant plus Y and W or W can be rewritten as C and U, and the cluster is the shortened form. Okay. For consonant clusters, onset example, we have stop plus W. So we have puede, that means okay or possible. That we usually found or we usually have terms with stop plus W when they're borrowed words, loan words, especially from Spanish. Then we have buenas, lucky or luck. Then tualia or tualia, that's towel. And then duende, or we usually say diwende, that's dwarf. And then cuarta for money. And then guapo or guapa for handsome and pretty or beautiful. Okay. And then we also have here limpio for clean, and then viuda or viudo for widower or widow or widower. And then we have guerra, but we usually say guerra, and we would just hear some people saying guerra or using guerra to mean war. Okay. Then we have stop plus the laterals L and R. We have plato for plate, and then claro, then prito, trapo for white, drama for drama, of course, then gripo for faucet. Okay, they're all Spanish borrowings. And then we have nasal plus W and Y. So we have here an example, muebles. This is, or only old people use muebles, but the younger ones no longer use muebles. But we can still hear some people using the term muebles. And then nueve is very common. It means 9. And then miércoles or miércoles in the common usage. Okay, and then we have okay. So I have fricative plus W, fricative plus N, fricative plus T. So you have your suerte. We also, this term is also very common in our dialect. And then huebes, then smagol, which means sleepers, and then storia or historia, which means story or tell a story. And then sta or hasta, and until, or that would also mean also or two. Okay, and then we have the consonant clusters. We have stop or nasal plus W, which can be pronounced as oi. Okay, here in the previous slide, I presented some terms with PW like puede, but the common usage in our dialect is puede. Pwede, and then next example. Okay, then bueno, we would say bueno. Then nueve, we would say nueve. And then jueves, we would say jueves. Okay, that's very common in our place. But we would also hear puede, bueno, nueve, and jueves among older people. Okay, and we'll proceed. Okay, so you have cluster, affricate ch and j, and then the fricative sh. Okay, Miss Divine mentioned that the fricative or the affricate j is very common, very productive in our language. That's why we prefer to call our dialect Bisaja. Okay, we would say adjaw, gadyo, baligja, ng kabadyong putik tijan, tungod kay mahal, baja, gadyo kaadyo na. Okay, again, we have a very productive use of that affricate j. Okay, so here we have common examples, cha, then plancha, then we have jutay, or jutay, and then ciudad or ciudad. Okay, that means city. Okay, so they're also very common in other languages, but in Southern Leyte, we would really say that it's Binisaja because we'd say planta, jutay, ciudad. Okay, that's very common. And then we proceed to the next slide, please. Okay, so here, W plus top, W plus nasal. We have here bowed, and then WG saug, then laum, bound, noun, nars, transportation. Okay, we have this consonant clusters emphasized here because in Hinunangan, they would say bawod, sawog, lawom, bawon, nawong. Okay, but elsewhere or in many places in Southern Leyte, would say bawd, saug, laum, bound. Okay, and then we also have here an S, NARS, for example, and then or RS for NARS, and then S for transportation. Okay. Next. Okay, and then we'll have the diphthongs. Okay, so we have next slide, please. Okay, wait. Okay. Okay, for diphthongs. Okay, I think there is a problem with my connection because I can't see the slides moving. Okay, wait. Okay, now see the slide. Okay, we have here aw, as in ig-agaw, and that means cousin, and then adlaw, day or sun, and then ew for agyo, or suit, or lagiuliw for spiny outgrowth from bamboo plants, and then I for by, a shortened way of saying that is house. And then bailu means to borrow or exchange. Then oy for baboy, and then luya, which means ginger. Okay, so we have 4 diphthongs in Bisaja. And then we'll proceed to the next. Okay. It's not moving. Okay. Okay. So we now have these syllable patterns for Bisaja. We have CV, the core syllable. For example, buhi, alive. We have mata, eyes. Baki, frog. Then gahi, hard. And we also have CVC, sample, bukton, arm. Langgam, bird. Buntag, daytime. Bulawan, gold. And then CVCC, mostly due to vowel deletion. So now, instead of saying no, okay, that is the common usage in Southern Leyte. And then aum instead of awom, and that means small. And then loud, that means deep sea. So that's that's how we say it in most places. But in Hinulangan, one municipality in Southern Leyte, that is Lawod. And then we have CCV. We have clusters mostly from borrowed words. We have cha, which means tea, then guapa, beautiful, clase means class, and then limpio, clean or to clean. And CVC, cuarto, for example, this means room, and then or bedroom, and then plansa, which means and then VCC, transportation. Very seldom that we can find some examples of Bisaja terms that have this or that follow this syllable pattern. And if we can find some, they're also borrowed. Okay, then we proceed. Okay, so Ms. Divine also mentioned earlier that there are possible unique usage. We are not very sure if these are really unique, but in our experience or in my personal experience, I have not encountered a dialect or a language with ag as determiner or subject marker. So in the example here, gikuha niya ag libro sa lamisa. Means he or she got the book from the table. So in younger generation, people would call or use ang, but in our case, we would say ag libro, ag iro, the dog, ag manga, meaning the mango. Okay, so that's ag. And that's very productive, very common in our dialect. And then we also have here aho, naho, kanaho. And in Cebuano Binisaya, they have this ako, nako, and then kanako. Okay, so gikuha naho agsudan sa lamesa. Okay, I got the viand from the table. And then ahong baon or baon naho. Okay, and then nibaylo ka o kwarta kanaho. Okay, sometimes we would hear people using kanaho, but the usual way of saying it is naho. Nibaylo ka o kwarta naho. Okay, so we would still have to conduct an investigation on this if this is unique in Southern Leyte. Okay, and then we have CE. Okay, CE is very common, also very popular, a very popular expression in Southern Leyte. And so this would be used as a particle, or this would also be used as an interjection to emphasize something. So buutan si ina si Maria. So that Maria is really a good person. So we have nindut si. That's really nice. Or my, how nice. Okay, so those are common examples. Now, to add more examples to that, CE is also used interjectionally to express surprise, shock, appreciation, or amazement. Like, ninduta CE, my, how nice. Lami CE, oh, how delicious. Okay, this particle also is used to accompany a statement of explanation. So, aho, for example, ag-aho si gianhi kay mangutang ko kwarta nimo. The reason I came here is to borrow money from you. Okay? And CE is also used to express disgust at something. Nilad CE. Ew, how bad. Okay. And then CE is also used if something is said modestly or perhaps sarcastically. Then if someone would ask you, unsa na, what's that? The response could be, wara si? Oh, it's nothing. Okay? So that's about CE. And when we had a talk with Divine, we agreed that we would investigate more on this because CE is very interesting and there is no published paper that discusses CE yet. So we'll be doing a paper on this CE and perhaps other particles. And then ara or arang have here that is used for adjectives. In other varieties, there is puerte or perte, perting guapaha. Okay, so arang guapaha ni Maria. So Maria is very beautiful. Okay, and then arado na si Jang guapaha. Okay, she is very, or arado na Jang guapuha. He is very handsome. Okay, so here we can say arajong guapuha or arajong guapaha or arajod na si Jang guapuha. Okay, so that's for ara and then arang. And then we have which is interesting because in our discussions or in our conversations with some friends, they would say the affix is not evident or not observed in Bisaja or even in Cebuano. But in my investigation, I have discovered that is also productive in Bisaja. Okay, the usual affix discussed in some studies is mukaon, mudagan, musuwat. But here we have arang kumaon ni Juan. So this is an intensive action emphasized here with or when we also use arang. So arang kumaon. Then giuhaw ko pag-adyo. Or giuhaw ko pag-adyo, uminom pakog tanduay kaya I got very thirsty. So I drank tanduay. So that was not originally planned, but there was an immediate decision to do something. There's unintentionally drank Tanduay. Okay, so again, this is another thing that we need to invest more because there are a number of cases where is used, but this is not also discussed in Cebuano papers. And then we have lengthening, which is also interesting in our dialect. And perhaps this is a unique usage, and we would be studying more on this. So, for example, gahi means hard, but if we lengthen the word by saying gahi, that means very hard. We can also say arang kagahi. Okay, arang kagahi, that means very hard, but we can just say it in a word by just lengthening the sound e. So gahi, very hard. And then niwang means thin. And then if we want to emphasize that it's very thin, we'll say niwang. Niwang nga tao. Niwang nga badji. Okay. And then dagan is run. And then we would say dagan. That's run very fast. Okay. And then lakaw means walk. And then lakaw, and you're going to walk intensely or you're going to go out often. And then we have dugay, means late or delayed. And you would say dugay, it's very late or very delayed. Okay, so lengthening in Bisaja is also interesting to investigate. That is why we include this as a possible unique usage in Bisaja. And okay, so that's it. Daghang salamat.
Ayan, maraming salamat po Ma'am Divine at Sir Joseph. Talagang kulang po ang kalahating oras para mapag-usapan natin yung mga tatatanging katangian ng dialektong Bisaja. Pero isang napakagandang karanasan po para sa amin bilang manonood na makilala ang variety na ito. Ngayon po ay dadako na tayo sa ating Q&A. Mukhang may mga tanong, komento at reaksyon na pong pumapasok sa ating comment section. Sige po, baka pwede po nating simulan sa isang tanong mula sa isang anonymous audience member tungkol po sa sound correspondences yung tanong niya. Narito po yung tanong, yung mga sound correspondence bang ipinresent ay regular sa buong lexicon ng Bisaja or undergoing pa rin ang diffusion nito sa naturang variant?
Okay. So, largely regular yung sound correspondence. But of course, meron pa ring mga exceptions. For example, yung intervocalic na L na nawawala. So, between two vowels. Naisip ko lang kanina yung example na bulok, which is U and U, di ba? Pareho lang. Bulok means, ano pang bulok? Stupid. Ibig sabihin niya. But, hindi pa siya, hindi pa ito shorten, kundi bulok pa rin. So, may mga iilan pa rin exceptions. Pero largely, siya parang sabihin natin 90% of the lexicon have already undergone these sound correspondences. Okay, may idadagdag ka, Sir Joseph?
Yun na.
Yeah, okay.
Okay po. Sige po. May isa naman pong komento mula kay Sir Vinci Santiago. Ayun, ang sabi po niya ay, in Porohanon, there are also forms which sporadically exhibit this lateral to glide sound change mentioned for Kinabalyanon. For example, yung katul ay nagiging katuy at yung bantul ay bantuy. Ayan. Sige. At may isang tanong din po si Sir Vinci. Can CE and Gajut be used in the same expression?
Okay. In the case of yung L2Y, so far ang nakita namin with Kabalyanon is that it happens in the intervocalic position. So yung gayon. And then wala pang na-encounter na nasa dulo ang change ng L to Y, but it's also because we haven't really investigated the the variety na kinabalianon. We're just familiar with that there is such a possible new not new possible other variety that is spoken in the same province. As for Si and Gajud, um correct me if I'm wrong, Sir Joseph. Pwede, no? Pagsamahin. Like, I could say, lami si Judni. So, this is really very tasty. So, there's a lot of emphasis as well as a lot of particles na hindi pa talaga namin na, nahihimay kung ano yung pwedeng environment as well as yung possible na kahulugan ng mga ito.
Yes, I agree. Okay, there are times when we use Gatud and CE, but the usual thing or the usual way of saying it is they're separate, but we can also say nindut Gatud si ina sija. Okay. Okay. Again, there are instances when we use Gatud and CE at the same time in the same construction, but it's rarely heard. But of course, in our experience as native speakers of Bisaja, we can hear people using those particles in the same construction.
Ayun. So, pwede po talaga silang magsama sa isang construction. Sige po. May isa po ditong katanungan na parang mas paglilinaw doon sa naunang mga part ng presentation. Yung tanong po mula kay Roy Javier. What's the difference between Bisaja and Visayan? Ayun, medyo na-miss daw po niya yung earlier parts ng presentation.
Okay. So actually, if you could go back, can you show it, JM, yung slide na about Bisaja and why we, anong slide yun? Number 8, page 8. Okay. So, ayan. So to summarize again, Cebuano is a kind of Binisaya, which is spoken by Bisaya. And then Bisaya, or you call Bisayan, is a speaker of any kind of Binisaya. And Binisaya are all the languages in the Visayas. And we call our variety as, next slide, we call our variety as Bisaja because of the prevalence of the affricate J in our variety of Cebuano.
Ayan. Thank you po, Ma'am Divine. May isang tanong naman po mula sa ating PhD student. Galing po kay Miss Range. What is the relationship of Kinabalyanon with the Kinabalyan language listed in the ethnologue?
Okay. Ako ba, Sir Joseph, would you like to answer? Okay.
And then, please flash it again, Sir Noah. What is the relationship? Okay. Kinabalan. In ethnologue, we can read Kinabalian, but when I had my field work, when I interviewed some teachers, they told me that they would prefer their dialect to be called Kinabalianon. Okay.
So, tumutukoy po yun sa iisang variety. Tama po ba?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's the same.
Yes.
Pero it's the same with Boholano, for example. We also call it Bulanon or Binolanon, like Bisaya, Bisaja. So it's the infix there.
Okay po. May isang tanong naman po mula sa ating undergraduate student na si Brian Baran. A question regarding ara o arang. Can this form be used in the same construction as emphatic or intensifying ka or a? O Cebu or Cebuano, kagwapo, kagwapo. Gwapoha.
Yes, the answer is yes. So for example, you can say arang kagwapa, and you can also say arang gwapaha. Okay. Now they're very similar, so we don't know yet if this is a case of different distribution or there is another cause, diba? Kasi there are different forms, so they probably have different meanings as well. But it's possible to use yun nga, arang guapa, arang kagwapa, and arang gwapaha.
Ayan. Sige po, habang patuloy pong pumapasok ang mga tanong sa comment section, isisingit ko lang po yung aking personal na katanungan. So
Okay.
nagkaroon na po ba kayo ng pagkakataong systematic kung maihambing yung mga data na meron kayo doon sa iba po pong variety ng Cebuan? Iba may marami po kayong nabanggit kanina. So may mga study na po ba kayong nagawa?
Actually, itong presentation na to ay tagpi-tagpi. So, yeah, so it's from a research I did ng 2018 yata for a dialectology class sa PhD namin ni Joseph. And then also yung kanya din for his dissertation as well. And then naikumpara namin ito, pero hindi pa formally, dun sa nagawa kong dialectology ng Cebuano, Bohol at Davao as well. So checking the behavior of this variety, it's really very close to Boholano. So ayun. But we're not sure yet if maybe it's Boholano talaga. Di ba? It's this Binulanon kasi may gumagamit din nun. But maybe there are also some differences that would really signify that it is a different variety aside from Binulanon.
Ayun. So marami pa po talagang kailangang tingnan ng mga
Sobra. At
aspekto.
ang daming variety ng Cebuano or Bisaya or Bisaja. So, napakarami pa. There are several in Mindanao. So, Davao, for example, is very, kumbaga, colorful. So, they have this kind of old Cebuano na very conservative. Like, we do shorten words. They don't. Like yung, we say, kat-kat, that is to go up. Sa kanila, kalat-kat pa yon. So, really long words. Tapos, meron mang part of Davao na they're very, tawag doon, yung mix na, yung kanilang, a mixture of Cebuano, Tagalog, and English, yung kanilang ginagamit na pagsasalita. Okay.
Ayan. Sige, meron naman pong isang tanong mula sa audience member natin sa Facebook. May info ba kayo sa kasidhian o kasaysayan ng contact ng mga Porohanon sa mga taga-North or Northeastern Bohol at Southern Leyte? Ang mga area na ito ang may distinct na yung J at Z na reflect sa kabisayaan.
Mm-hmm. Actually, I played with this idea, no? Na before na yung, baka naman yung J ay galing sa Southern Leyte at hindi sa Bohol siya. Okay, kasi nabanggit ni Joseph sa akin before that yung mga mangingisda in Southern Leyte would they go to Porohanon as well. Porohanon sa Camotes Island. So they also go there. So that's possible contact. Tapos kunyari nalaglag lang nila yung J part, yung D part of the affricate, no? So Z na lang natira. As well as yung sa Bohol ay ano rin, yung katapat ng Southern Leyte sa Bohol, they also use the J sound as well as I think Surigao also. So parang nung nakapalibot sa Southern Leyte. Of course, hindi ko pa masyadong na-entertain yung idea because that would require studies as well on, migration, yung mga economics ng mga ganito. So, ayun. So, laro-larong idea lang. Yeah, intermarriages as well. Okay. But definitely, there is contact. I'm not sure if there is still so much contact with Camotes Island, but definitely with Bohol. Meron pa rin hanggang sa ngayon. And Surigao as well.
Ayan. Sige po, may isa pa pong tanong galing kay Miss Ringe. So sabi po niya, in your presentation, you are entertaining a possible distinct language classification, right?
Which one? Yung Bisaja or yung Kinabalian?
Yung
Bisaja. It's definitely, it's definitely a variety of Cebuano. As for Kinabalianon, as for Kinabalianon, probably the same problem of Vinci. If it is a dialect or a language, but it's clearly a lect, it's clearly a variety because it has Surigao influence, it has Cebuano influence, as well as a substrate of Waray also. So interesting din makita na how come na merong Waray dito sa wika na ito. Ayun.
Okay. So yung Kinabalyan daw po, ayun, magkaiba daw po ba na iyon na language classification o nasa pangalan lang talaga yung kaibahan ng Kinabalyan at Kinabalyano? Tama po ba?
Yes, sa pangalan lang.
Pangalan lang. Okay. Sige po. Ayan. So medyo isang malaking tanong talaga yung pagkakaroon ng kung dapat pang ituring yung mga variety na iyon na isang hiwalay na wika o dialect. Kasi naalala ko, merong sinulat si Carlo Rubino tungkol sa utod nun. Tapos, tinuring niya yon bilang isang hiwalay na wika. Pero kung habang tinitingnan ko po yung presentation yun, nakikita ko yung malaking pagkakatulad ng utod nun doon sa Bisaja. Ayan. Sige. Ayan. May tanong naman po galing kay John Francis Rizada. Are there any plans to study the Cebuano in Camiguin? Heard from a friend na Boholano o Leyte daw po yung migrants there.
Sana. Okay, what we really need is we need a comprehensive dialectology of Cebuano. Actually, hindi madalas nababanggit itong Camiguin kasi it's usually Cebuano, Leyte, Southern Leyte, Bohol, as well as Iligan, Davao, Cebu, of course, but not Camiguin. Hindi siya madalas na nababanggit. So we'll see, no? Yeah, maganda sanang gawin. Especially if we could check if they do have the same, behavior, yung L2Y, L2W, as well as yung Y2J, kung galing sila ng Bohol and Leyte. Okay. Kayo, Sir Joseph. Si Sir Joseph daw po mag-aaral.
I have not heard of the Cebuano variety in Camiguin, but I am familiar with the Sikihor, that it's also very close to Cebuanong Bisaya. So if we are going to conduct further studies on this, and that would be very interesting to include Camiguin, because now we have heard, or we have this information from Sir John that the variety in Camiguin, or the Cebuano variety, is also similar to that of Bohol and Aus in Southern Leyte. Okay.
Ayun. So, mukhang iyon na po yung ating last question. Ayan, sorry. Ito pa po pala yung isang tanong galing sa ating PhD student na si Miss Ava Villarreal. May barangay din po dito sa Surigao City na maraming migrants from Bohol. Kaya interesanting malaman kung yung variety dito ay halo ng Surigao nun at Polano.
Yes. Very interesting. At si Ava ang gagawa. Joke, Ava.
Nagpasahan na ng trabaho.
Yeah, actually, kasi diba yung variety that sa Kinabalian has Surigao influences. So it's also interesting to see what if, no? Kung ano naman yung kanyang, kumbaga, manifestation in this case sa ilang barangay sa Surigao.
Ayan. Saka masyadong maraming paksa yung nabuksan ngayong hapon.
Marami kami.
Yung dalawa po ni Sir Joseph. Na.
Marami kami i-research. Marami assignment.
Ayan. Sige po, kung may mga tanong pa po na nais na itanong sa ating speakers, maaari nyo pong ipadala ang mga ito sa email address ng department at kami na po ang magpapaabot ng mga ito kay na Ma'am Divine at Sir Joseph. Muli, maraming salamat po Ma'am Divine at Sir Joseph sa pagbabahagi ng inyong pananaliksik tungkol sa Bisaja. Hintayin po namin yung magiging resulta ng mas malalim nyo pang pagsasaliksik sa iba't ibang aspekto ng dialektong ito. At this point, on behalf of the UP Department of Linguistics, I would like to present the Certificate of Appreciation. The Certificate of Appreciation is hereby given to Joseph M. Añavesa and Divine Angeli P. Endriga for delivering a lecture titled An Introduction to Bisaja, Cebuano-Southern Leyte, as part of the Philippine Indigenous Languages Lecture Series organized by UP Department of Linguistics. Given this 20th of March 2023, signed by our chairperson, Maria Cristina S. Gallego, PhD. Ayan. Nais din po namin magpasalamat sa lahat ng tumutok sa ating mga live stream. Hangad po namin ang patuloy niyong pakikiisa at pagsuporta sa iba pang mga event at aktibidad na ilulunsad para sa pagdiriwang ng 100 taon ng departamento. Sa mga sumubaybay po sa ating lecture ngayong hapon at nais na makatanggap ng Certificate of Attendance, pakisagutan lamang po ang evaluation form. Ang link po ng form ay makikita sa comment section. Nais din po naming imbitahan ang lahat para sa ika-4 na installment ng PILS na gaganapin po sa buwan ng Abril. Ang itatampok naman po natin ay ang mga wikang bilik. Ang 15th Philippine Linguistics Congress naman po ay gaganapin sa Agosto 2023. Para po sa mga update tungkol sa PLC, at sa iba pang mga aktibidad ng departamento, mangyaring i-like at i-follow po natin ang opisyal na Facebook page ng UP Department of Linguistics. Maraming salamat po sa pagsubaybay sa lecture ngayong hapon. Muli, ako po si Noah Cruz hanggang sa susunod na installment ng PILS. Maraming salamat po at magandang hapon.